two should have walked away when she said my name like she already knew me. I was standing in line at the pharmacy waiting to pick up a prescription I'd forgotten to refill for days. She tapped me on the shoulder like she had every right to. Like we were halfway through a conversation I didn't remember starting. "Daniel," she said, tilting her head. That smile, not wide, but deep. Like it had history. "Is it you?" I turned, blinking. Yeah." She laughed. "You don't recognize me, do you?" I didn't. And I said so. I could have lied, played it cool, pretended I knew her from somewhere, but I was tired of pretending. These days I told the truth even if it made me look stupid. "I'm sorry." I admitted, scratching the back of my neck. "No worries." She grinned. "I'm Leah. We matched on Hinge like 2 years ago. We never met. You ghosted me." I winced. "Oof. Did I really?" "Yup." Classic fade out after a few days of texting. I laughed awkwardly. "I don't even remember that." "I'm sorry." "Don't be," she said. I was already back then anyway. And that was the moment. That tiny hinge, the door of everything swung on. Most women would have walked away. Most people don't walk toward the guy who ghosted them. But she stood there like it was nothing. Like it didn't matter. And for some reason I couldn't explain, maybe it was the way she said it, or maybe it was the loneliness I'd stopped admitting, I asked if she wanted to grab coffee. She said yes without hesitation. At the cafe 2 blocks down, she didn't touch her latte until I took a sip of mine first. "Still paranoid about first date poisoning?" I joked. "You remember that from my profile?" Apparently, I remember more than I thought. We talked like people who'd missed each other in a past life. She told me about her job at the music school, how she taught piano to kids who couldn't sit still for 10 seconds. I told her I used to be a pilot but was grounded during COVID and never quite got back up. That I did freelance logistics consulting now. That I lived alone and didn't know how to cook anything more complicated than scrambled eggs. She said I like scrambled eggs. We stayed there until the chairs were being stacked around us. I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to end it before I knew if she felt the same heat I did. As we walked out, she brushed her fingers against mine. Just once. A featherlight pass. But it stopped me cold. I turned to her. "Was that on purpose?" She shrugged. "You're going to ghost me again?" "No." "Then yeah. It was." I kissed her. It was fast and a little clumsy, and she laughed into it. But she kissed me back. Fully. Like she hadn't been kissed right in a long time. Like she'd been waiting for me. That night, lying awake in bed, I told myself not to get carried away. That it was just one meeting. That I didn't know her. But some part of me, the part I'd locked up years ago, whispered, "You do now." I didn't plan to see her again the next day. But I also didn't stop myself when I typed, "Hey, what are you up to later?" She replied within a minute. Not pretending I'm too busy to text you back. She was funny like that. Dry. Quick. No performance, no filter. It caught me off guard. Most people I met after my last relationship felt like they were trying out for a role. Leah just was. And it was magnetic. We met again that evening, same cafe. This time she brought sheet music with her, spread it out like it was nothing. "You don't mind, do you?" she asked, I scanning the notes. "Got a recital coming up. Trying to memorize this part." I shook my head. "No. I like watching you focus." She looked up, smiled slowly. "That's a weird compliment." I meant it. She didn't speak for a second, then folded the music. "You always this intense?" "Only with people who make me forget what day it is." I could see it in her face, the way her defenses buckled just slightly. A little inhale. A shift in her seat. And that's when I realized I was already closer to her than I meant to be. We walked through the neighborhood after coffee. She talked about her sister who lived overseas. How they used to play piano duets when they were kids. How things got hard after their dad died. I told her about my mom's silence after the divorce, about how I used to fly long-haul routes just to avoid being home for holidays. "We're both runners," she said quietly. "I guess we are." She stopped walking. "But I don't want to run anymore." That hit me in a way I didn't expect. The wind seemed to leave my chest. Me either. I kissed her again. It was slower this time. Less heat, more gravity. The kind of kiss you remember not because of what it felt like, but because of what it promised. She said, "Want to come back to mine?" I paused. Not because I didn't want a god, I wanted to, but because something told me if I crossed that threshold, there'd be no going back. Still, I nodded. Yeah. Her apartment was small, lived in, and real. She didn't try to clean anything up or pretend it was something it wasn't. Her cat jumped onto my lap like it was his chair, not mine. "His name's Mingus," she said, slipping off her boots. "Of course it is." We didn't sleep together that night. She changed into an old hoodie, handed me one too. We sat on her couch watching a documentary neither of us paid attention to. When she fell asleep with her head on my chest, I didn't move. I stared at the ceiling and thought, this is dangerous. Because I already felt safer than I'd felt in years. And safety, that's where love sneaks in. The third weekend, she asked why I never talked about my ex. I was fixing her kitchen faucet, not well, just enough to stop it from shrieking every time it turned, and she leaned in the doorway, arms crossed, hair still damp from a shower. You talk around her. Not about her. I tightened the wrench too hard. What's there to say? She tilted her head. People don't leave marriages without a story. I stood, wiped my hands. She cheated. Leah didn't flinch. Just nodded. I'm sorry. Thanks. Do you still love her? No. She waited. She wrecked me, I admitted. Not just because she cheated. It was how easy she made it look. Like I was just some phase she could walk out of. Leah stepped closer, gently took the wrench from my hand. You ever tell anyone that? Not really. Why me? I shrugged. You ask like you can take it. She didn't answer right away. Then said I can. We didn't sleep together that night either. But we undressed. Not sexually, just enough to lie tangled in bed skin to skin, her heartbeat against my chest. It was the kind of intimacy that makes the silence loud. That night, she told me about the man she almost married. He didn't hit me, she said, but he made me feel small. Like love was something I had to earn. I looked at her and said, you don't have to earn anything with me. But I also knew I couldn't erase those scars. I could only promise not to deepen them. We fell into a rhythm after that. Tuesdays and Thursdays she stayed at mine, weekends I stayed at hers. She always brought her keyboard over and left coffee stains on my books. I left my running shoes by her door and started keeping a spare charger in her kitchen drawer. We hadn't said I love you. But it was there, humming beneath every look, every late-night forehead kiss, every mid-conversation hand reach across the table. Love was in the way she remembered my dad's birthday and asked if I wanted to call him. It was in the way I memorized how she took her tea and left notes in her coat pocket when I left early for work. But love isn't always loud. Sometimes it waits. The first fight came unexpected. We were driving back from a weekend in the mountains. Music low, windows half down, sun sliding behind the hills. She mentioned running into her ex last week. Casual. Like it was nothing. My hands stiffened on the wheel. You didn't tell me. She looked at me. I didn't think it was important. Did you talk? A little. 5 minutes, maybe. You didn't think I'd want to know? She frowned. What's the issue, Daniel? The issue is I don't want surprises. Well, maybe I didn't want to make it a thing. It is a thing if you hide it. She went quiet. Turned to the window. I hated myself instantly. When we got back to her place, I didn't follow her in. I sat in the car, watched her walk away without turning back. My chest hurt in a way I hadn't felt since the divorce, not because I didn't trust her, but because I realized how badly I needed to. Later that night, I sent a text. I'm sorry. That wasn't fair. She replied, I get it. Can we talk tomorrow? And when we did, she held my hand and said, I don't want to be another wound you flinch from. I looked at her and said, then stay. And I'll learn not to flinch. We were both haunted. But we didn't run. We chose to stay. It was around the 5th month that something shifted. It wasn't a blowout or some major revelation, more like a slow fade of tension I hadn't even realized I was carrying. The way I started sleeping through the night. The way she laughed a little louder. We were settling into something that felt dangerously close to peace. And peace, for people like us, felt like unfamiliar territory. One night we were cooking dinner, she'd started teaching me how to make pasta from scratch, and she said, flour on her cheek, you know what's weird? What? This is the first time I've actually believed someone meant it when they said they weren't going anywhere. I looked at her and I didn't joke. I didn't deflect. I just said, I'm not. She leaned into me, pressing her forehead against my shoulder. Then I should probably tell you something. I didn't move. Just waited. My ex. He reached out again. My gut tightened. What did he say? Nothing big. Just that he was sorry. That he missed me. That he saw a photo of me online and it made him realize what he lost. I swallowed. And you? I didn't respond. Deleted it. But it shook me. Why? Because for 1 second, I thought, what if I hadn't met you? I turned to her, cupped her face. But you did. Yeah. She nodded, voice breaking slightly. I did. It wasn't jealousy that hit me. It was fear. Because I knew what it was like to hear from someone who once had your whole heart and realize you're not immune. That love, even bad love, leaves a scent. But I trusted her. Not just her loyalty, but her strength. and that trust changed something between us. A week later, I invited her to meet my mom. It was a Sunday brunch. Leah brought flowers. My mom, skeptical by nature, watched her like she was solving a puzzle. But by the time we left, she hugged Leah tight and whispered something in her ear. In the car, I asked, "What did she say?" "That she hasn't seen you this alive in years." I looked at Leah. "You scare me, you know?" "Why?" "Because if I lose you, I don't know if I come back from that." She touched my face. "Then don't lose me." And just like that, we started talking about the future. Not in sweeping declarations, but in quiet planning. Shared calendars. Talks about maybe getting a bigger place. About whether we'd want kids, or if it was enough just to have each other. But life doesn't let you coast for long. One night she came home from work, dropped her bag and said, "You're going to hear something tomorrow, from someone at your old airline. And I need to tell you first." I sat down. My whole body tensed. She swallowed. "Before I met you, before I even knew you existed, I slept with your former coworker. Just once. It was meaningless. I didn't know who he was to you." My heart dropped. I knew the guy. I'd once flown back-to-back rotations with him. He was arrogant, loud, slept around like it was a badge of honor. And now he'd have the story to tell. I looked at her. "Why now?" "Because he saw our photo. Asked if I ever told you." I didn't want it to come from him. I nodded slowly. "You didn't lie. But you also didn't tell me. I was scared you'd look at me different." I stood, walked to the window. Anger wasn't what I felt. It was fear. Fear that this beautiful, fragile thing we were building might crack under the weight of the past. "You're not her," I said finally. She looked at me, confused. "Who?" "My ex. You didn't betray me. You didn't cheat. You just existed before me." She nodded, her eyes glossy. "But I want all of me to be safe with you, even the messy parts." And I realized in that moment, trust isn't just built by what people say. It's built by what they're willing to let you see. After that conversation, there was a quiet between us. Not cold, not distant, just careful. We still held each other at night, still made coffee together in the mornings. But it felt like we were watching our steps, like dancers relearning their rhythm. Every now and then I caught her looking at me too long, like she was waiting for the other shoe to drop. And maybe I was too. It's strange how something that didn't happen to you can still feel like a bruise inside you. I wasn't angry she'd slept with that guy. I was angry that now he lived in my head, that he'd have the smirk in his voice if our names ever came up in the same room. One night, lying in bed, she asked, "Are we okay?" I didn't answer right away. Then I said, "Yeah, but I'm still thinking." "About what?" "About how I've spent years trying not to need anyone. And now that I do, I hate that it scares me." She turned, her cheek pressed against my chest. "You don't have to pretend with me. That's the problem. I'm not pretending. I'm just afraid." Of what? I didn't say it then, but I knew. I was afraid that loving her meant putting every fragile part of myself in her hands. And that even if she never meant to hurt me, life might still find a way. Because that's what it does. It finds the cracks. It was her dad next. She got the call on a Tuesday. I remember because she was humming while making soup and suddenly froze. Phone still at her ear. No expression. Just stillness. A stroke. Massive. No warning. He died before she could get to the hospital. I'd never seen her that silent. Not even when she was asleep. She sat on the couch for 2 hours without moving. I tried holding her hand, bringing her water. She barely blinked. When she finally spoke, she said, "He wasn't perfect, but he tried." I nodded. "You don't have to explain." She looked at me then, eyes red, but dry. "I don't know how to do this." "You don't have to. I'm here." And I was, for everything. The funeral, the awkward family dinners, the estate paperwork. I held her when she broke down in the kitchen, when she yelled at her sister for not coming home sooner, when she couldn't find the words to say goodbye. Grief changes a person. It either pushes people apart or welds them closer. We got closer. And one night, maybe 2 weeks after the funeral, she crawled into bed beside me, rested her head on my chest, and said, "I love you." I held my breath. Not because I didn't feel the same I had for months, but because I didn't want to say it out of relief or obligation or fear of the moment. I wanted it to be clean. But when I looked down and saw the way her eyes closed, like saying those words had drained her, I said it anyway. "I love you, too." And I meant it. Not as a bomb. Not as a reflex. But as a promise. Because that's what love is, in the end. It's choosing to stay. Even when everything inside you wants to run. It should have felt like we were past the hard part. After months of healing and holding, of late-night talks and Sunday mornings in each other's arms, I thought we were on solid ground. The future stopped feeling like a question mark. I could picture it: holidays, a house with music echoing down the hall, her laugh in the next room. It wasn't a dream anymore. It felt like a plan. But the thing about earthquakes is they don't care how long it's been quiet. The fault line's always there, waiting. It started small. A change in her. Not cold, but distant. Distracted. A slow withdrawal I couldn't name, and at first I didn't push. She'd been through a storm with her father's death, and grief has a long tail. I thought it was just that. But then she started working late. Canceling dinners. Saying I'm just tired more than usual. Her messages got shorter. Smiles less frequent. And when I reached for her in bed, sometimes she'd turn the other way. One night, I asked, "Is something wrong?" She hesitated too long. "No," she said. "Just life." But I knew the rhythm of her lies. And this one wasn't for malice. It was to protect something. Maybe me. Maybe herself. I started noticing the phone habits again. The way she tilted the screen when I walked in the room. The way she always kept it face down. I told myself not to spiral. That I wasn't that guy. But doubt is a poison that doesn't need much to take root. So I asked again. "Leah, is there someone else?" Her eyes widened, not with guilt. With pain. "No," she said immediately. "God, no." "How can you think that?" "Because I've been here before." She sat down slowly, like the weight of the room had changed. "I know you have. But I'm not her." "Then tell me what's going on." She looked down at her hands. "I've been scared." "Of what?" "Of how much I love you. Of how much of myself I've handed over." I sat beside her. "That's not a weakness. It is when you've never done it before." She told me then, haltingly, about her past. About how she built her independence like a fortress. About how every relationship before me ended the second it asked for more than she was ready to give. And now here we were, everything she ever said she wanted, and it terrified her. "I thought I'd be ready," she said. "But sometimes I feel like I'm waiting for it to fall apart." I reached for her hand. "Then let's not let it." But I knew. Deep down. Something had cracked. Because love is strong, but it's not invincible. It's built on faith, and when that faith gets shaken, the whole structure trembles. A week later, I found the message. Not from an affair partner. Just a saved draft. On her laptop, left open. A half-written note she hadn't sent. It read, "I don't know how to tell him I'm drowning. That I love him, but I feel like I've lost parts of myself in this. That maybe I needed to choose me first before I chose us." I didn't confront her. Not right away. I closed the laptop. Drove to the lake. Sat there for hours watching the water. And for the first time in a year, I let myself ask the question I'd been too afraid to ask. What if love wasn't enough? What if the person I gave everything to wasn't ready to be held? She knew I'd read it. I didn't say a word, but she felt the shift. Maybe in the way I held her, a second too long or not long enough. Maybe in how I stopped filling the silence with plans for us. A few days later, she asked, "You found it, didn't you?" I nodded. "Yeah." She didn't try to defend it. Didn't make excuses. She just looked at me with those wide, open eyes and said, "I'm sorry." "I know." And then came the longest pause of our lives. We sat across from each other at the dining table. No music. No wine. No distractions. Just two people staring at something they didn't know how to hold anymore. "I meant what I wrote," she said eventually. "But I didn't write it to end us." "Then why?" I asked. "Because I felt like I was disappearing. Not because of you, because of me. I gave everything I had, but I forgot to leave something for myself." I understood that more than I wanted to admit. "I've been you," I said. "In my last relationship. I gave until there was nothing left. And when it fell apart, I didn't know who I was anymore." She reached across the table, took my hand. "I don't want that to happen to us." "Then what do you want?" I think, she swallowed hard. "I think I need space. Not because I want to leave you. But because I need to come back to you whole." I wanted to argue. To say we can work through this together. But what would that have been, love or fear? So I let go. Not out of anger. Not even out of heartbreak. but because I knew, truly knew, that if we kept clinging while she was drowning, we'd both go under. She packed slowly. No slammed doors. No screaming matches. Just two people saying goodbye, not because they didn't love each other, but because they finally did. She left a note on my pillow the day she moved out. You gave me back pieces of myself I thought I'd lost. You reminded me how to feel. If this is the end, thank you. If it's not, I'll find my way back when I'm ready, not broken, but whole. I didn't cry until I found her mug still in the dishwasher. Grief doesn't always come from loss. Sometimes it comes from grace, from watching someone walk away without resentment, with love still in the room. And now I live in the space between heartbreak and healing. Some mornings I wake up reaching for her out of habit. Some nights I still whisper things to the dark, forgetting she's not there to answer. But I'm okay. Slowly, I'm okay. I started running again. Took a weekend trip on my own. Called old friends I'd been avoiding. I even picked up a piano keyboard from a thrift shop and started learning, finger by stumbling finger. I smile when I play. Not because I'm good, but because she would have laughed at how bad I am. And I know this much, whatever comes next, I'll carry her with me. Not as a ghost, not as regret, but as the reminder that love, real love, doesn't always end with forever. Sometimes it just ends. And that's okay, because we don't heal by holding on. We heal by learning how to let go.